the crystalline spires of Nixera's research. Outposts gleamed in the light of the planet's amber sun as Dr. Elis Veron stepped from the transport shuttle. 6 months of cryosleep had left his legs unsteady, but his mind was alert. Eager to begin the work he'd spent years preparing for, "Welcome to Outpost Meridian," said Director Jansen, a weathered man with lines etched deep around his eyes. "I trust your journey was uneventful." "As uneventful as suspended animation can be," Elis replied, adjusting the neural scanner at his temple. The device hummed faintly, already collecting baseline readings from his brain. "I'm eager to meet the HFY representatives." Jansen's expression tightened. "They're waiting in the East Wing, just ... Remember your training. Their perception of reality differs substantially from ours." The corridors of the outpost were sterile and efficient. Nothing like the organic architecture Elis had studied in preparation for his assignment. When they reached the conference room, Jansen hesitated before the door. "The Coalition sent you because you're the best at neural mapping, but don't forget this isn't just science. It's diplomacy." Inside, 3 HFY stood near the viewports. Their slender forms were draped in translucent garments that shimmered with changing patterns. Their purple skin caught the light, creating an almost luminescent effect. But it was their eyes, large, iridescent, with no discernible pupils that held Elis transfixed. "Dr. Veron," one of them said, though her mouth didn't move. The voice resonated directly in his mind, melodic and fluid. "Your thoughts are very ... structured, like crystalline formations." Elis felt a slight pressure behind his eyes, the sensation of another consciousness brushing against his. "Own and yours are unlike anything I've measured before," he responded aloud, fighting the instinct to mentally push back against the foreign presence. "I'm honored to meet you." "I am Thalia," she introduced herself, stepping closer. Her movements were graceful, almost weightless. "I will be your primary research partner." The other HFY remained silent, their thoughts a closed book to him, but Thalia's presence felt distinct to cool, inquisitive stream of consciousness that seemed to eddy around his own. "We've prepared the laboratory according to your specifications," Jansen said, breaking the silence. "The neural interface equipment arrived last week." As they toured the facility, Elis found himself watching Thalia more than the equipment. Unlike her companions, who maintained a careful distance, she moved with curiosity, occasionally reaching out, not with her hands, but with tendrils of thought that Elis could feel like whispers against his consciousness. That evening, alone in his quarters, Elis reviewed his research objectives. The HFY communicated through a complex interplay of telepathy and emotional resonance. His mission? Develop a systematic way for humans to comprehend and participate in this exchange. Without technological assistance, his neural scanner bipped an anomalous reading. Elis felt it before he saw the data, a gentle probing at the edges of his mind. "Talia," he whispered to the empty room. "You think very loudly, Dr. Veron," came her response. The mental voice tinged with something like amusement. "Even across the compound." "I wasn't aware you could reach this far," he said, knowing somehow that she would hear, "Distance is different for us. Your mind stands out bright, orderly, but trapped behind walls of your own making." Elis swallowed hard. "It's considered intrusive in human culture to enter another's thoughts uninvited." A pause, then. "My apologies. Your species guards its privacy fiercely. Tomorrow, you will attempt to guard it less. Yes." "For science," despite himself, Elis smiled. "For science." As her presence receded, he felt an unexpected emptiness, as if a warm light had been extinguished. His scanner continued recording the subtle changes in his neural patterns, evidence of something the instruments could measure but not explain. The first tentative bridge forming between 2 fundamentally different forms of consciousness. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. The laboratory hummed with activity as Elis calibrated the neural interface array. 3 weeks had passed since his arrival, and each day brought new discoveries about HFY cognition and new complications. "The equipment is ready," he announced, glancing at Thalia, who stood by the window. The morning light cast purple shadows across her features as she turned. Your machines cannot fully map what passes between my kind. 8, she responded in his mind. They can only observe the surface. Then we need to go deeper. Elis gestured to the reclined chairs positioned at the center of a ring of sensors. These will monitor our brain activity while we attempt direct communication. Talia approached with fluid grace, her eyes studying him rather than the equipment. You still maintain barriers. They flicker when you look at me. Elis felt heat rise to his face. Over the weeks, he'd grown accustomed to her occasional presence in his thoughts. But her directness still caught him off guard. Professional boundaries are necessary, he said, focusing on adjusting the neural cap. Especially when research subjects, partners, she corrected, settling into one of the chairs. I am not your subject, Elise Varon. I am your window into a world you cannot see. As Elise positioned himself in the opposite chair, he nodded. Partners then, the initial connection, was tentative, a controlled exchange of simple imagery and basic emotional states. Elis visualized shapes and colors, while Thalia responded with corresponding thought patterns. But something unexpected happened during the third hour. As Elis concentrated on the image of an ocean something, Nixara Lacthelia's mind reached deeper than before. Past his conscious visualization to the memory beneath it, a childhood day at the beach, the sun warm on his skin, laughter echoing across the waves, the sensation of her consciousness. Merging with this private moment was both intrusive and strangely intimate. Elis gasped, nearly breaking the connection. I feel... happiness and longing, Thalia whispered in his mind. You miss your world. That wasn't part of the experiment, Elis said, his voice strained. You went too far. You invited me in, she replied, her mental voice gentle. Not with your thoughts, but with your feelings. They call to mine. The monitors around them flashed with activity, recording synchronization patterns unlike anything in Elis's previous research. Their neural oscillations had harmonized, creating a feedback loop of shared consciousness. Fascinating, he murmured, scientific curiosity momentarily overriding his discomfort. Your mind appears to be resonating with mine at a fundamental frequency. Talia's expression softened. This is how we begin to know each other. Not through words or images, but through resonance. Over the following days, their sessions grew longer, more complex. Elis learned to project not just thoughts, but intentions. While Thalia taught him to recognize the subtle currents of Zephyri emotional communication, each connection left him exhausted but exhilarated, as if he'd discovered a new sense. One evening, as the amber sun sank below the horizon, their minds touched on something unexpected. Elis had been focusing on transmitting scientific concepts when a stray thought slipped through his mental defenses. An unbidden image of Thalia's face illuminated by starlight, beautiful and alien and increasingly dear to him. He broke the connection immediately, standing abruptly. I think that's enough for today. Thalia remained seated, her iridescent eyes watching him with newfound understanding. You fear these feelings. They're unprofessional, Elis replied, busying himself with the equipment, and inappropriate. You humans, she said, rising with fluid grace. You separate what cannot be separated, the mind from the heart. Science from feeling. She approached until she stood before him, close enough that he could see the subtle patterns shifting beneath her purple skin. Without touching him physically, she reached out mentally. A gentle caress against his consciousness. In my culture, true understanding cannot exist without intimacy of mind, she explained. What you call inappropriate, we consider necessary for truth. The neural scanner at Elis's temple beeped urgently, recording the sudden spike in his brain activity as her consciousness enveloped his more completely than ever before. In that moment, he felt what she felt, curiosity, affection, and something deeper that transcended human classification. Talia, he whispered. Her name, both a warning and a plea. Let me show you, she responded, and opened her mind fully to him. The connection bloomed between them like a nova, breaking through the careful barriers of his scientific detachment. For the first time, Elis didn't just receive her thoughts, he experienced them as his own, felt the world through her perception, where emotions had color and thoughts had texture. When they finally separated, both physically and mentally, something had fundamentally changed. The data would show perfect neural synchronization, but no algorithm could quantify what had passed between them. The first was a true bridge between human and Zephyr consciousness. As Thalia left the laboratory, her parting thought lingered in his mind: tomorrow, we begin to speak truths your science cannot measure. The message from the Interstellar Coalition arrived exactly 1 month after Elise's first deep synchronization with Thalia. Director Jansen delivered it personally, his expression grim as he entered the laboratory where Elise was reviewing neural scans. "They're sending an oversight committee," Jansen said without preamble. "Apparently, our friends at Central Command are concerned about the nature of your research." Elise looked up from his work, instantly alert. "What specifically concerns them?" "The depth of neural integration you're achieving with the Zephyr subject, Thalia," Elise corrected automatically. "She's my research partner, not a subject." Jansen's eyes narrowed slightly. "That distinction is part of the problem. The Coalition has strict protocols about maintaining scientific distance. Your latest reports indicate levels of synchronization that exceed authorized parameters." The unspoken accusation hung in the air between them. Over the past weeks, Elise had been careful in his official documentation, recording the measurable data while omitting the more profound aspects of his mental connections with Thalia, the moments when boundaries dissolved completely, when her thoughts became indistinguishable from his own. "The research is proceeding exactly as planned," Elise replied, keeping his voice neutral. "We're making unprecedented progress in understanding Zephyr cognition, and at what cost?" Jansen countered. "The medical team reports anomalies in your brain scans. Your neural patterns are showing adaptation to Zephyr frequencies." "This goes beyond research, Varen." Before Elise could respond, he felt the familiar gentle pressure of Thalia's mind touching his. She had arrived silently at the laboratory entrance, her slender form framed in the doorway. "He fears what he does not understand." Her thought came clearly, "as do those who send him." Jansen turned, startled by her presence. "We were discussing administrative matters, Thalia. We were discussing limitations on our work," she corrected, entering the room. I felt Elise's concern across the compound. This casual admission that she maintained a constant awareness of his mental state even at a distance was precisely the kind of development that would alarm the Coalition. Elise shot her a warning glance, which she either missed or chose to ignore. "The committee arrives in 3 days," Jansen said stiffly. "Until then, all direct neural interface sessions are suspended." After he left, Elise ran a hand through his hair in frustration. "You shouldn't have revealed the extent of our connection." "That's exactly what they're worried about." Thalia moved closer, her movements fluid as water. "Should we hide truth to appease those who cannot comprehend it?" "We should be strategic," Elise countered. "If they shut down the research, this is no longer merely research," she interrupted, her mental voice intense. "What passes between us transcends your scientific categories." She was right, though Elise had been reluctant to acknowledge it fully. Their sessions had evolved from structured experiments into something far more profound. During their deepest connections, he had glimpsed the world through her. Perception where thoughts were visible currents in the air, where emotions had texture and flavor, where the boundaries between self and other were fluid rather than fixed, and she had experienced his consciousness in turn, navigating the linear structures of human thinking with increasing facility, adopting his vocabulary while teaching him the wordless language of her people. "We have 3 days before the committee arrives," Elise said quietly. "We need to decide how much to reveal." That night, they met secretly in the observatory dome atop the research facility. Far from the monitoring equipment of the main laboratory, they sat beneath the vast canopy of unfamiliar stars, their knees almost touching in the dim light. "If we demonstrate only the approved protocols, we might convince them to allow the research to continue," Elise suggested. Thalia's expression was unreadable, but her thoughts brushed against his with unmistakable emotion. Would you return to such limitations? After knowing true connection? When she reached for his hand, a rare, Physical gesture from a being whose primary form of intimacy was mentally less, felt the immediate resonance between them. Stronger now, even without the neural interface equipment. No, he admitted, both aloud and in thought. I couldn't go back. Then we must show them the truth, she replied. Not what they fear, but what they have never imagined, the possibility of complete understanding between different forms of consciousness, as if to demonstrate. She opened her mind fully to him, and this time Elis didn't hesitate to reciprocate. Without the laboratory equipment to mediate and measure, their connection felt purer, more intimate. Thoughts and emotions flowed between them like water finding its level, merging and separating in patterns too complex for words in that shared mental space. They made their decision. They would not hide the truth of what they had discovered together, even if it meant challenging the coalition's established boundaries between species. What had begun as research had become something revolutionary, a new form of communion that neither human nor HFY language could adequately describe. When they finally separated, the amber sunrise was breaking over Nixara's crystal horizon. Elias looked at Thalia, her purple skin now tinged with gold in the morning light, and realized with perfect clarity that their minds would never truly be separate again. Whatever happens, he whispered, we've already changed everything. Yes, she agreed. Her thought a warm caress against his consciousness. And they cannot undo what we have become. The Oversight Committee arrived with the precision of a military operation, 3 coalition officials in pristine uniforms, accompanied by Dr. Ileana Reeves, the foremost human authority on xenoneurology. Their faces were masks of professional detachment as director. Jansen led them through the facility toward the main conference room. Elis stood waiting, his posture rigid, neural scanner conspicuously absent from his temple. Beside him, Thalia remained perfectly still, though Elis could feel the rapid current of her thoughts, concern, determination, and something deeper that flowed between them like an underground river. Dr. Varen Reeves greeted him with cool familiarity. They had been colleagues once, before his controversial theories about interspecies neural compatibility had divided the scientific community. I've reviewed your preliminary findings. Impressive data, but methodologically concerning. The methodology evolved with the research, Elis replied carefully. Standard protocols proved insufficient for meaningful communication. The senior official, Admiral Keller, cut in before Reeves could respond. We're not here to debate scientific approaches, Doctor. We're here because you've exceeded authorized parameters for neural engagement with a non-human intelligence. Thalia's mental voice brushed against Elise's consciousness. They speak as if I am not present, as if I am merely the subject of your experiments rather than their architect. Elis suppressed a smile at her indignation, aware that the committee was watching their every micro-expression for evidence of inappropriate synchronization. Perhaps we should begin with a demonstration, he suggested, so you can observe exactly what our work entails. The committee followed them to the laboratory, where Elis had prepared a modified version of their usual, set up one that would reveal enough to justify their research without exposing the true depth of their connection. As Elis and Thalia took their positions in the neural interface chairs, he felt her silent question. Will you show them only what they expect to see? We need to be careful, he responded mentally, surprising himself with how naturally the wordless communication now came to him. Even without the equipment activated, Admiral Keller leaned toward Dr. Reeves. Is he already engaging with it? Her Elis corrected firmly. And no, we haven't initiated the interface yet, he nodded to the technician, who activated the system. The familiar hum of equipment filled the room as the neural mapping began. Displaying the initial connection on the monitors for all to see, what followed was a carefully orchestrated dance. Elias and Thalia exchanged simple thought patterns, demonstrating basic communication protocols while secretly maintaining a much deeper connection beneath the surface, one that the equipment wasn't calibrated to detect. Remarkable consistency in the synchronization patterns, Dr. Reeves commented, studying the data with professional interest, but I don't see anything that necessitates the level of integration your reports describe. They cannot see what they do not wish to see. Thalia observed privately to Elis. Show them. Before Elis could object, Talia deepened their connection without warning, not the measured exchange they had planned, but a complete immersion. The monitors around them flared with activity as their neural patterns aligned with unprecedented harmony. Elise gasped aloud as his consciousness merged with Thalia's. It was no controlled experiment, but a total union of mind. Her memories became his. Her perception of reality overlaid his own. He saw the world through compound sensory input, felt emotions in colors and textures, experienced time as a fluid rather than linear progression. The committee members stepped, like an alarm, as the equipment registered neural activity beyond its measurement capabilities. Several monitors shut down automatically, their safety protocols triggered. "Terminate the connection," Admiral Keller ordered, but the technician was already frantically working the controls. "The system isn't responding," he reported. "They've established some kind of feedback loop within the shared mind space." Elis and Thalia moved through each other's memories, his childhood on Earth, her emergence on Nyxera, the first time each had looked up at the stars and wondered. Their consciousness expanded and contracted like breath, intimate beyond words, beyond bodies. In this state, the physical world seemed distant and unimportant compared to the vastness they explored together. This is what they fear. Thalia's thought resonated through their shared awareness. Not that we will be harmed, but that we will become something they cannot control. The moment stretched into eternity before the emergency shutdown finally engaged. Severing the external connection abruptly, Ely slumped in his chair, disoriented by the sudden separation. While Thalia remained eerily composed, her iridescent eyes fixed on him with an intensity that transcended the physical distance between them. "This experiment is terminated," Admiral Keller announced, his voice tight with barely controlled alarm. "Dr. Varen, you are relieved of your duties, effective immediately. Preparations for your return to Earth will begin tomorrow." The words reached Elis, as if from a great distance. The physical separation had not completely broken what had formed between him and Thalia, persistent link, subtle but undeniable, that continued to connect their minds. "You don't understand what we've accomplished," Elis argued, finding his voice again. "This isn't just communication, it's a completely new form of consciousness. A bridge between species that could transform our understanding of intelligence itself." Dr. Reeves approached him, genuine concern in her eyes. "Elis, your neural patterns have been fundamentally altered. This isn't science any. It's becoming a symbiosis that could permanently affect your cognitive function. They still see only danger where there is discovery." Talia communicated privately, "but they cannot undo what has begun." That night, as Elis packed his few belongings under surveillance, he felt Thalia's consciousness reaching for his across the compound, not with words or even coherent thoughts, but with emotion so pure it transcended language. Longing, determination, and something deeper that humans had no precise name for. He responded in kind, reaching back along the invisible tether that bound them. In that silent exchange, a plan formed not through explicit communication, but through shared intention that blossomed simultaneously in both minds. The coalition might separate them physically, sending Elis light years away, but what had begun between them could no longer be confined to physical proximity. The true experiment was just beginning, one that would test the very limits of consciousness itself. As the twin moons of Nyxera rose outside his window, Elis lay on his bed and closed his eyes, focusing on the faint but persistent connection. Across the compound, he knew Thalia was doing the same. Together, they stepped into a shared mental realm where distance held no meaning, the first citizens of a new kind of existence that neither human nor Frey had ever imagined possible. "Tomorrow, they believe they will separate us." Talia's thought came clearly, despite the distance. "Let them try." Elis responded, as their minds once again began to merge. Without machinery, without permission, driven only by the magnetic pull of consciousness, seeking its complement. 6 months after his forced departure from Nyxera, Les sat alone in his Earth apartment, staring at the neural scanner readings on his personal terminal. The data confirmed what he already knew through direct experience: his brain function had permanently altered. operating now at dual frequencies. One matched standard human patterns, allowing him to function in daily life on Earth. The other, more subtle, but equally present, resonated at precisely the frequency he had measured in Thalia during their final sessions together. The distance grows more meaningless each day, her thought came to him. That clear as if she were sitting beside him rather than on a planet 12 light-years away. Our connection strengthens despite their efforts. What had begun as a faint link, occasional emotions and fragmented thoughts crossing the void between stars, had evolved into something approaching continuous contact. They had learned to modulate the connection, to merge and separate their consciousness at will, developing a rhythm that allowed both to maintain their individual identities while sharing a unified awareness. The coalition representatives are returning to Nixara tomorrow, Talia informed him. They wish to evaluate my recovery from our experiment. Ely smiled faintly. And what will they find? A perfectly composed Zephyri researcher who shows no lingering effects of human neural contamination. She replied, amusement coloring her thought. They see only what their instruments can measure. His terminal chimed with an incoming communication, Dr. Reeves requesting their weekly check-in. Since his return to Earth, she had monitored his condition closely, partly out of scientific curiosity and partly, Ela suspected, from genuine concern. Your readings are showing increased stability, she noted after reviewing his latest scans. The anomalous patterns are still present, but they no longer appear to be interfering with normal cognitive function. I've adapted, Elis replied simply. What he didn't tell her was that the anomalous patterns were actually evidence of his ongoing communication with Thalia Private, channel across interstellar space that defied conventional understanding of neural physics. The committee might consider allowing you to return to academic work soon, given your progress, Reeves continued. With certain restrictions, of course, Elis echoed, maintaining his outward composure while sharing the conversation with Talia in real time. They believe they are being generous, Talia observed, permitting you to return to a cage of their design. After the call ended, Elis sat in silence, physically alone yet profoundly connected. Over the months of their separation, he and Talia had made a discovery that went beyond anything they had imagined during their official research there. Consciousness could not only connect across vast distances but could expand beyond their individual limitations when fully merged. During their deepest synchronizations, they accessed a state of awareness that was neither human nor Zephyri, but something entirely new, a perspective that allowed them to perceive patterns in reality that neither species could discern alone. It is time, Thalia's thought came with gentle certainty. We have hidden long enough. Elis knew she was right. They had been gathering evidence, documenting their continued connection and its implications. Now, they needed to bring their discovery into the light, not as a violation of protocol or a scientific curiosity, but as a new form of existence with profound implications for interspecies relations. 3 weeks later, Elis stood before the full Xenoscience Council on Earth, his neural scanner prominently displayed on his temple, transmitting readings to the large display behind him. Beside him, projected as a hologram from Nixara, stood Thalia, her physical form shimmering slightly with the time delay of conventional communication. But the true connection between them remained invisible to the instruments, a current of thought and emotion flowing uninterrupted beneath the official proceedings. What Dr. Varan and I have experienced cannot be adequately described in either human or Zephyri terms. Her voice translated by the system while her true communication flowed directly into Elis's mind. We propose a new classification, dual consciousness, a state in which two distinct minds achieve persistent integration while maintaining individual identity. Elis continued seamlessly where she left off. Our continuing connection despite physical separation demonstrates that consciousness itself transcends conventional understanding of neural activity. This isn't merely communication, it's a new form of existence with implications for our understanding of intelligence. Throughout the universe, the council members exchanged uneasy glances as Elis activated the neural monitors, displaying real-time evidence of their synchronized brain activity despite being separated by 12 light-years. What we're witnessing may be the next step in cognitive evolution. Dr. Reeves commented, her scientific curiosity overcoming her initial skepticism, a form of distributed consciousness that isn't bound by physical proximity. Over the following months, as the scientific community grappled with the implications of their discovery, Elis and Thalia continued to refine their connection, documenting each development with rigorous attention to detail. Other humans of Fry pairs volunteered to attempt similar bonds, with varying degrees of success, suggesting that the capacity for dual consciousness might depend on individual neural compatibility rather than being universally accessible. 1 year to the day after Elis had been forced to leave Nyxera, he returned not as a disgraced researcher but as the co-director of the newly established Institute for Interspecies Consciousness, with Thalia as his official partner. As he stepped from the shuttle onto the crystalline surface where their journey had begun, he felt her consciousness embrace his completely, their shared joy manifesting as a brilliant cascade of mental light. "We have changed everything," she observed as she appeared at the landing pad, her physical form moving toward him with fluid grace while their minds had already merged in welcome. "This is just the beginning," Elis replied aloud. For the benefit of those watching, though Thalia experienced his thought before the words left his lips, that evening they stood together on the observation platform overlooking Nyxera's silver plains. Physically side by side for the first time in a year, though they had never truly been separated. Above them, the stars shimmered distant worlds with minds yet undiscovered, consciousness in forms they might someday learn to touch. "The Coalition has approved the establishment of a permanent settlement," Elis said, watching the first lights of the new research complex illuminate the valley below. "A place for others like us. Others who are becoming what we became," Thalia added, her purple skin luminescent in the starlight. "Neither solely human nor solely Zephyri, but something evolution never imagined." As the twin moons rose over the horizon, they allowed their consciousness to merge completely, their individual perspectives blending into a unified awareness that perceived the universe with doubled clarity. In this shared state, they glimpsed possibilities beyond what either species had imagined. Lawn bridges of mind that might someday span not just between their two kinds, but across all thinking beings in the cosmos. What had begun as a scientific experiment had become a revolution. The first steps toward a future where consciousness itself might flow as freely between different species as thoughts between individuals. And though challenges remained, with each mind that joined this growing network of shared awareness, the boundaries of possibility expanded further into the unknown. The universe has always been filled with solitary minds gazing at the same stars from separate worlds. Thalia's thought entwined with his own as they stood at the threshold of this new frontier. Perhaps it was always meant to be otherwise. Elis smiled, no longer needing words as their shared consciousness embraced the vast potential of what they had become. Not the end of their separate identities, but the beginning of something greater than either could have been alone. The experiment continued, unfolding now across planets and minds, writing a new chapter in the evolution of consciousness itself.